All right, what's up, everybody? Nothing near post here. You can find me on Twitter at Niner_M. We're gonna give this lacrosse media thing a try. Give Terry Foy a run for his money. See if we can do our best Terry Foy impression. A little bit about me: 11-year college coaching career and a 4-year Division One playing career at the Hobart College. Brought out the team issued 2008 hoodie. Um, Lacrosse makes me feel some type of way. And I have serious blood rush on Saturdays in the spring, and don't even get me started on watching some film. Hopefully, this thing takes off and we can watch some film together down the road. But with that, I wanted to bring some of my Twitter takes to life and talk about the upcoming college season. But first, I think part of the how do I want to say this? Part of the drive to do this is in remembrance of two legends of the game, both of which happen to have ties to my alma mater. And this first sort of go at talking lacrosse on the internet it goes out to them. You know, the first is Coach Dave Urick, who passed away in December. He's a legend on the sidelines for both Hobart and Georgetown. At Hobart, he spent 19 seasons on the sidelines, 9 as an assistant, earning the 1972 USILA championship, as well as the 1976 and 1977 NCAA Division II championships as an assistant, and then 10 years as the head ball coach in Geneva, New York, where he proceeded to win 10 straight NCAA Division III titles. Something that really hasn't been touched since in any sport. Realistically, it's really only John Wooden and the UCLA Bruins that can be put in a similar sentence. And part of that 10 was 1980 was the very first Division III national championship. Coach Eric then took his talents to the District of Columbia for 23 seasons at Georgetown University, and during that tenure, he never suffered a losing season. He led the Hoyas to 11 NCAA tournament appearances, advancing to the national semis in 1999. When he retired from Georgetown in 2012, Urick's career record, both at Hobart and at Georgetown as a head coach, stood at 352 wins and 132 losses for a career winning percentage of 727. Just incredible. 1990, Urick was inducted into the Hobart Athletic Hall of Fame. He was inducted into 6 additional Halls of Fame for his contributions as a student athlete and a coach. The Cortland C Club Hall of Fame in 1986, the Upstate New York Lacrosse Hall of Fame, in 1991, and the National Lacrosse Hall of Fame in 1988, and the Potomac chapter of U.S. Lacrosse Hall of Fame 2005, the Georgetown Athletic Hall of Fame 2014, and the IMLCA Hall of Fame in 2016. The other guy, and this one is close to me, is Rick Gilbert. Everyone in lacrosse will know about Dave Urick. I mean, he wrote the book on how to play lacrosse, but Rick Gilbert, a little bit less known, but as dominant. Hobart attackman from 1971 to 1974. During his 4 seasons in Geneva, Rick was named an All-American all 4 years. He was the first NCAA lacrosse player to eclipse the 400-point mark for a career, ending with 444 total. To put that in perspective, Lyle Thompson leads all Division I lacrosse point getters with 400. Michael Sowers is second with 383, and Pat Spencer is third with 380. And before you go making D3 and D1 comparisons, Rick played everyone during his time in Geneva. Division I, Division III, Division II. They had crossover games, including Syracuse, where in 1973 Rick posted a stat line of 4 and 7. Also played Cornell multiple times. Across all divisions since 1971, which was Rick's freshman year, he is third all-time in points, trailing only Jason Kaufman of Salisbury with 451. That was from seasons 93 to 96. And dare I say, Kaufman, upstate New York product. And Will Van Dorn from Keene and Montclair State, 97 to 2000, who put up 450. So Kaufman, 451. Van Dorn 450, and then you got Rick at 444. So you got the first place guy, Kaufman, upstate New York. And then you got Rick, the third place guy, upstate New York, West Genesee High School out of Camillus. Fourth place is John Upgren out of Tufts by way of Stillwater, Minnesota, which is pretty cool. And then fifth place is, Upgren 418, so nearly 30 points off. And then Lyle, 400, also an upstate New York product, which is just, the center, the epicenter, if you will. Ricky Gilbert owned the Hobart lacrosse records for goals, assists, and points in a career. Also, points in a season and assists in a game. His career 444-point total in 68 career games came on 157 goals and 287 assists. Gilbert recorded at least 1 point in every game he played for Hobart. Insane. And he's the only statesman to have a double-digit assist game, a feat he accomplished 3 times. He led the statesman to the USILA national title in 1972, and that doesn't even mention his 3 separate features in Sports Illustrated during his lifetime. I'll say it here loud and proud. This guy deserves to be in the National Lacrosse Hall of Fame. The fact that he's not is a big-time miss, but nothing near post is going to be changing that very soon. Mark my words. Now that the stage is set, this episode is going to be not really an episode. We're just talking lacrosse. This is raw and unfiltered. Now that the stage is set by those 2 guys, Coach Urick and Ricky Gilbert, it's time to talk ball. 2025 is right around the corner. I think we got about 3 weeks till our first face-off. That means something. And preseasons are buzzing. Athletic trainers have been sure to make sure teams have gotten through their acclimation periods. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. So leading up, I want to look at teams by conference, quickly peeking back at what last year held for them, and then maybe pose some questions for their 2005 campaign. And I figured we should start with arguably the best conference in the land. And I say arguably, only because of the gorillas up in Ann Arbor. But we're going to cover the ACC here today, who've got 4 of the last 5 national titles to their name. Arguably the best conference. I don't know. But the ACC Breakdown, all right, 2004 standings. You had Notre Dame in the top spot at 16-1 overall, 4-0 in the conference. You had the Cuse, the Orange, upstate, 12-6 overall, 3-1 in the conference. You had the Blue Devils at 13-6 overall, 1-3 in the conference, tied with UVA at 1-3, 12-6 overall in 4th, and then UNC 7-7 on the year, 1-3 in the conference. So nobody went winless. Notre Dame at the top, UNC at the bottom. I think we'll go at this from a top to bottom perspective. All right. A bunch of stuff to talk about. You got Notre Dame. All right. The Fighting Irish, national champs, 16-1, back-to-back NCAA titles. What's crazy to me is they've only been a varsity program since 1981. Coach Corrigan, USILA Division I Coach of the Year in 2004, with the only blemish coming at the hands of the Hoyas at home in South Bend at Arlotta on February 25th. Pretty awesome win for those Hoyas. But Notre Dame itself, best scoring offense in the country. It's 15.65 goals for. They did this, what's crazy to me, they did this without a player in the top 30 of goals per game. Chris Kavanaugh was 32nd. He was their top dude. They were 3rd in the country in assists per game, 9.41. Jacksonville, shout out the Dolphins down in Florida. Coach P, were number 1. 10.06 assists in the 10.06 assists per game, and then you had Cornell at number 2 at 9.5. Cough cough, upstate. You got number one EMO in the country, the Fighting Irish, 67.5%. Number 1 in the country in shot percentage, 37.4. Those 2 stats are insane. EMO at 67.5 might as well be automatic. Insane. And then the shooting percentage thing in the country, not being number 1, 37.4%. So 1 out of 3 shots are going in the back of the net. That speaks not only to their skill level, but the shots that they're generating. And they're getting great looks, and shooting percentage is something that I think is undervalued in today's game by the average fan. And Coach Brandon Childs down at York College is a huge proponent of it, and he's certainly opened my eyes to it. And I think it's something that you'll see a bit of a trend. But Fighting Irish put up a ton of goals, and clearly the shooting percentage had something to do with it. You're the number 1 best scoring offense in the country, and you're the number 1 in shooting percentage. Pretty easy formula right there. They also had the best scoring defense in the country at 8.94 goals against. Defense wins championships, and the Fighting Irish have proven that the last 2 years. One thing that's interesting, though, is their man down was 64th in the country. Not sure if this is, does this mean that they had bad scheme, bad players? I don't think either are true. I think it's a testament to the ACC, and I don't know. That's certainly an anomaly. So you're the best scoring defense in the country, but you're 64th in man down. Something to certainly keep an eye on. And 1-goal games in the ACC, usually special teams have a huge impact. So they're 13th in face-off winning percentage at 57.1, and they were 5th in clearing percentage at 90.2. Clearing percentage, huge piece to the game. Turn attention to the roster. All right. On offense, they're losing the ACC Male Athlete of the Year. Amazing that it's a lacrosse player, Pat Kavanaugh. He was 31 and 49 for 80 points, and he was 18.77% of their point production. You lose Devin McLean, 1-year rental from Brown. He was 37 and 8. Certainly the beneficiary of Pat having 49 helpers. You lose Eric Dobson, all right, the party starter. 17 and 14 for 31 points. He was 5th on the team, 6'5", 235-pound lefty who is just a matchup nightmare. And I use that term party starter. He certainly found ways to get the offense going, drew a ton of attention. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out, who can step into that role here in 2025. But between Dauber, Kavanaugh, and McLean, that was 36.6% of their points last year. It's a big number. It's a third of their production. So that's certainly some big holes to fill. On defense, they're losing Chris Conlon, the Holy Cross transfer, 2 years in South Bend. He started every game during his tenure in South Bend. Awesome to see a Patriot Leaguer heading to the ACC and becoming a stalwart. You lose Marco Napolitano, starting defenseman, kind of the third guy. Great communicator, organizer, waited his time and out there in South Bend and did a great job for the national championship team and the top scoring defense in the country. You lose Ross Bergmaster, LSM from Auburn, New York, undersized dude, but a motor that never quit. And you lose Carter Parlett, defensive midfielder out of Ponte Verde, Florida. Incredible athlete, had a great career defensively in that short stick D-midi spot for the Fighting Irish. And then arguably the biggest piece between the pipes, he'll lose Liam Entenmann. He was number 1 in the country in goals against average. He was number 6 in save percentage at 57%. Those are big shoes to fill. And I'm not sure you fill them. Entenmann had an incredible career, and it's going to be interesting to see who can follow up that type of performance. Especially because now you got guys on staff that don't have a ton of experience. And experience is certainly a big thing when you're between the pipes and the bright lights of the ACC. And Notre Dame plays a ton of games on ESPN. And, Sundays when there's nothing else going on, everyone's watching. That's going to be a big piece. Guys that got returning. All right, you got the face-off. Will Lynch, 61%. Colin Hagstrom, 46%. So you got your 2 draw guys coming back. Will Lynch was the bell cow, taking 330 draws, 202 wins. Little 1-2 punch. It's really nice to have. You obviously return Chris Kavanaugh. People have high hopes for Chris. I'm really interested, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, how he looks as a solo show. But he was last year 81 points on 44 goals and 37 assists, 19% of the team scoring. Outdid his brother by a point. I'm sure Pat heard about that at the Thanksgiving table. You lose Jake Taylor, or excuse me, you bring back Jake Taylor, 41-4 on 49% shooting percentage. Every other shot was going to the back of the net. It's insane. Absolutely insanity. He was second on the team in goals, only behind Chris Kavanaugh. Bring back those two on attack is a pretty special thing. You bring back Jordan Faison, 22-8. Football, obviously, everyone talking about him. I'm pretty sure there was a drinking game every time that they said lacrosse during a college football playoff game. You had a good night if you played. But Faison obviously having a great season for the Irish, and they've got one more to take care of business. So it'll be interesting to see what his role is there. But we'll talk more about Faison, I think, because I got some questions. But defensively, you bring back Sean Light. He was a rookie last year. Great work on the defensive end out of New Jersey. And you bring back Will Donovan, the LSM. 21 caused turnovers, 33 ground balls, and he added 2 goals on top of it. But it's kind of a quick look at the roster. Certainly bring back some things. You lose some really big pieces. But I think my first question for the Irish, how does the attack unit look in South Bend with only one Kavanaugh? Right? You bring back Taylor, sure. Okay. But was Chris and Pat, are they a package deal? Can Chris do what he did, 81 points on, let's get the numbers right here, 81 points on 44 and 37. Can he do that without his brother garnering a ton of attention, the number one cover? Because Chris is going to get the number one guy now, and we all know the number one guy in the ACC is no slouch. You got to assume Jake Taylor is going to continue to put himself in good spots to score, but him too. Like, without all the attention on Pat Kavanaugh, how does Jake get open? Does he get open as often? I mean, I value the crease action of a guy like Jake Taylor because, again, 49% shooting percentage, you're getting looks in really high scoring chance areas. And it's something that it makes defensive coordinators shake at night, quite honestly. I think the second biggest question behind the attack unit is going to be who steps between the pipes. You got Alex Zaff out of Chaminade, was the number 2 last year. He seems like the guy. You've also got Campisi, a transfer from Harvard. Where does he fit? Could he be the guy? I don't know. I think it's Zaff's net. Had a great high school career. Has waited his turn. I think he can be ready. I certainly evaluated him when he was coming through. Never had a chance to recruit him, but certainly evaluated him, watched him play, and the kid keeps the ball in front of him pretty well. So, and I mean, Entenmann, another Chaminade product. Coach Wellner giving him the secret Chaminade handshake in the recruiting process. So I think Zaff could have a pretty good year, but there's also going to be a relatively new unit in front of him. How do they gel? Do they give him a good chance to be successful? Next question. Where does the midfield depth come from? You've got obviously Faison, which will be interesting. No fall ball. Obviously, he's on the gridiron, playing deep into January, so he's got no preseason. What's he going to look like on the lacrosse field, and does he even show up? I mean, that might be a little bit of a hot take, but does he even show up? He's clearly got a future on the football field, so he's a big piece to what they want to do. He could be a party starter. He is unguardable. He's unguardable. Will his stick work be what it needs to be? Probably not. But he's unguardable as an athlete, and his angles and his change of direction, and he's clearly got the lacrosse sense. Like, he knows when and where to go. And but who do you put around him, right? You got Max Buzenkel from Garnet Valley coming back. You got Will Angrick from Georgetown Prep coming back. Did they take steps forward? You got Griffin Grant out of Torrey Pines. Shout out Coach Zissy out there in the West Coast. Does he take a step forward in his development? And then lastly, and arguably most importantly, you got Matthew Jeffrey out of Cheshire High School, #1 recruit in the country. Midfielder. Is he ready to make an impact? Right? There are rumblings that maybe he hasn't been around the team as much as they would have liked. I believe he was playing a little bit of football as well. So where is he in his development to get to the college game? And if you're the #1 recruit in the country, you're going to have a target on your back. And the expectations are going to be through the roof. So it'll be interesting to see him on opening day for sure. See what he can do on that midfield with that midfield unit. The other guys, the other guys that I've got my eye on as far as the recruiting space is concerned are the 2 other 5-stars that the Notre Dame Fighting Irish brought in. You got Brady Picorne, a left-handed attackman out of Darien. Does he come in and play attack? Does he play in the midfield? Be interesting to see where Coach Corrigan has him slotted as far as the offense is concerned. And then you got Jimmy Kenny, LSM out of Needham High School outside of Boston. Great to see their three 5-stars all coming from public high schools. As a public high school guy myself, awesome to see. So those are my questions on Notre Dame. What does the attack unit look like with only one Kavanaugh? Who steps between the pipes? And then midfield depth. Who's it going to be? They're certainly Notre Dame's in a position now with back-to-back NCAA championships. They're not going to rebuild. They're going to reload. And it'll be cool to see the Fighting Irish come out buzzing. I think the other piece, too, that's really neat about Notre Dame is they play a tough schedule, but they don't play a ton of games. So they're always prepared. They usually got a full week to get ready for teams. And is that a strategy? Is that a philosophy? Is that a travel thing? Who knows? But it's a reality. So that they're going to be ready, and they're talented top to bottom. So we'll come back. We'll look at a schedule here in another episode. But let's close the book on the Irish. Let's move on to the Syracuse Orange. All right. Looking back last year, 12-6. An Elite 8 loss, 10-8 to Denver. That's coming after a 2023 season where they were 8-7 and got no invite to the dance in May. So pretty good turnaround. Pretty good turnaround for the Orange there. And it'll be interesting to see if they can take another step with Coach Gate at the helm, getting his feet wet. You keep the staff together. You got Coach O'Dearna coming back. You've got, obviously, Coach March coming back. Coach March actually has the longest tenure on that staff, which is pretty cool. 3rd season for Gary Gate. You got the 5th season for Pat March. And obviously the first going into his 2nd for Coach O'Dearna. Out of that 12-6, the Orange were 8-2 at the Dome. I like to say Dome, sweet Dome. The Orange love playing at home. It's a tough place to play. I think their average attendance is through the roof. People of Syracuse and the Syracuse community love Syracuse Orange lacrosse. They get the Dome rocking for the big ones and for the not so big ones. It's a great atmosphere, but tough to play. It's intimidating. I played there myself. It's an intimidating place to play. As a netminder, sight lines are tough. Now, I will say this, though. New seats at the Dome. JMA Wireless Dome. New seats. No longer those shiny chrome benches that you got to see the ball through. I believe we got blue seats all over the place. Is that going to change things for goalies? Either way, still a tough place to play. But 8-2 at home. Got to keep an eye on that here in 2025. Syracuse, by the stats, they were 6th in scoring offense at 14.72 goals for. And what's cool is looking back to 2023, they were 12th at 14.33. So almost nearly a half a goal better in 2024. You had Owen Hiltz, 61st in the country in goals per game. So he is your top scorer. And again, an offense that did it without one dude. They shared it around. They're 5th in assists per game at 9.28. Their EMO was 22nd in the country at 41.8, and they were 12th in shooting percentage at 31.6. They were 30th in scoring defense, 11 goals against a game, which an improvement again. So you went 12th to 6th in the offense, and you go 30th in 2024, where you were 44th in 2023. So 44th, they were at 12.13, so that's 2003. And then in 2004, they were 30th with an 11, so over a goal per game better. The Coach O'Dearna impact, cool to see them roll a unit out there that's going to have some continuity. What can they do to continue to make that climb? 35th in man down at 64.4%. The Junkyard Dogs, they talked about it on almost every broadcast. Coach O'Dearna had an entire new unit of dudes playing man down defense, the Junkyard Dogs, and they did a great job. 35th at 64.4%. Pretty good being in the ACC, playing against the top level talent that the Syracuse Orange do. They were 7th at the faceoff X at 58%. And they were 38th in clearing at 87%. Crazy how far you can fall off with just 3 percentage points, but clearing the rock matters, man. Clearing the rock matters. Looking at the roster, all right? Looking at the roster, you're losing Will Mark between the pipes, all right? 52.4% save percentage, which was good for 27th in the country. 11.08 goals against average, 31st in the country. I think Will did a good job. I'm not a huge believer in Will Mark. Might be a hot take. Kid's clearly got talent. He did everything he could between the pipes. I'll be interested to see what happens now that someone else is going to have to take the reins up in Syracuse, New York. 27th in the country, 31st in the country, goals against average 27th, and save percentage. If you look at my Twitter, certainly had a few Will Mark takes back last year. Some people would label me as a hater. That's fine. Totally fair. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him vacating that spot. You lose Christian Mule on attack. He was 25 and 19 for 44 points. That was 10% of their production. They played two lefties with Hiltz and Mule on that left side. You lose Jake Stevens, midfielder, two-way, do-it-all. Had a great summer for the New York Atlas. Jake Stevens is a game changer, man. He can do it all. He's your people usually call these guys the old school midfielder. He was awesome to watch, awesome to play. Motor that didn't quit. Also, he can score goals for you. He can take the ball away, gets it up off the ground, off the wing. That's going to be a large gap to fill with Jake Stevens leaving Syracuse. And then the face-off X, I mentioned it. They were 7th in the country at 58%. They're losing Mason Cone, who was actually a Tufts University graduate. He did a grad year at Cuse, 336 draws, 196 wins for a 58.3% win percentage. Awesome. Love to see the D3 guys coming up and making an impact right away. The face-off X has been an interesting one for Syracuse over the last, we'll call it 4 or 5 years. I feel like they've always got 4 or 5 face-off guys, 6 face-off guys on their roster, always looking for transfers, trying to find that right fit, and they found it in Mason Cone. But really cool to see him coming out of the NESCAC in Division III, and you'll see that this is a little bit of a trend, which is going to be exciting for them. So that's who you're losing, those big names that you're losing. Only 4, the goalie, Mark, the goalie, Mule on the left side with Hiltz, Stevens in the midfield, and then Cone at the face-off X. What the Orange are returning is why I think they're going to be good. They're going to return Owen Hiltz and Joey Spallina. 35% of the production between those two dudes. 35.4%. Spallina was 37 and 51 on the year for 88 points. Hiltz was 38 and 27 for 65. Great years for both of them. You bring back Michael Leo Jr., midfielder. He's been playing midfield on the left side for the Orange. He was 28 and 9 for 37 points. Did this in the midfield. Be interesting to see, does he bump down to attack, join his club teammate and Joey Spallina, Team 91 off of Long Island. Does he stay in the midfield and continue to get that kind of production, garnering a short stick? Does he earn a long pole? Do you move him down there because he's getting the long pole? Be interesting to see how that all pans out. But great year for Michael Leo, 28-9. You got Finn Thompson. This junior class is just freaking loaded. You got Finn Thompson, midfielder, 24-14 for 48 points. You got Sam English coming back for a grad year, 23-11 for 34 points. You got Luke Roa, junior midfielder, 20-1. Pass the ball, Luke. But hey, if you're throwing it in the net, you're throwing it in the net. And then you got senior attackman Jackson Burtwhistle, who's been a man-up specialist for the most part. Kid's just got a nose for the goal, 12-2 for 14 points. Be interesting to see if his role expands at all, just because he can throw it in the net with great skills. Philly kid. I know I got a coaching buddy who's a huge Jackson Burtwhistle fan. Shout out Coach Sharbs. It'll be fun to see where Jackson fits. Defensively, they're returning all three dudes that started their last game of the year. And that was the Elite Eight loss to Denver. Everybody talking about Billy Dwan, Jr., Loyola Blakefield. He had 8 goals on the year too. Pretty sure probably 50% of them were the highlight reel type, you know. But he's certainly grown into his own as a defender as well. You got Caden Cole out of the Salisbury School from Danville, California. And then as the fourth guy, you've got Nick Kakamo out of Harbor Fields, New York. But I think the biggest piece is Riley Figueres, one of the more underrated dudes in all of Division I, junior out of St. John's down in D.C. It's turned into an absolute powerhouse down there lacrosse-wise. I think they've overtaken Gonzaga, to be honest with you, the last couple years. But Riley Figueres is going to be a huge piece to that defensive puzzle. And that cohesiveness and that experience that all those guys had last year coming back is going to be huge for Coach O'Dearna and the Orange to be able to put a great product out on the field. But just looking at that junior class, damn, like you got Spallina, Leo, Thompson, and Roa, Billy Dwan, Figueres. And I'm probably missing one somewhere, but I mean, that junior class is, watch out, they're coming. Last remaining faceoff guy that they're bringing back is going to be Johnny Mullen. He shared some of the load this past year. He took 185 draws, 107 wins at 57.8% out of Norwell, Mass, the shipbuilders. So what questions do we have, right? I'm really curious. Does Michael Leo slot down to that lefty attack spot left behind by Muley? Or do they go more traditional, right? Like, so Cuse was using 2 lefties last year. They go more traditional and slot a righty down there. You got Hiltz, who's a ball carrier but can play off ball. You got Spallina, who's definitely a ball carrier primarily. Do you put a Burtwhistle down there? You know, do you put a Burtwhistle down there to be that sort of off-ball presence to gel with the other two? Do you put Michael Leo down there? There's only one ball. All 3 of those dudes kind of need it. I'm sure they can all play off the ball. There's no doubt about it. Hilt certainly can. But it'll be interesting. It'll be really interesting. I'm going to have a close eye on that for sure. You return the entire close D unit. And I am confident that Coach O'Dearna can take that group to another level. But here's what's going to be interesting. They got transfer Michael Grace out of RIT. 2-time D3 Defensive Player of the Year, coming right down the thruway from Rochester to Cuse. Can he be the next Mason Cone? D3 to D1 instant impact. He's listed at 6'5", 220. I got to believe he's physically ready. You're not the Division III Defensive Player of the Year if you're not physically ready. Playing in big games, playing late into May for Coach Kuhn and the Tigers. It'll be great to see how he fits in with this group that clearly is bringing back a lot. But there's got to be a spot. There's got to be minutes for the big fella, Michael Grace, to make an impact. Who steps between the pipes, right? You got a few dudes on the roster. Jimmy McCool out of Boston, Mass, and Patrick Duffy out of Portland, Oregon were the only other two goalies who got time last year. You've got Braden Ferguson, a 4-star freshman from the Bullis School. You've got Kyle Raleigh, Episcopal School of Dallas. Or you've got Michael, who I'm going to butcher his last name, Ippoliti, out of Farmingdale. Go Dalers. So open contest there, open competition. Jimmy McCool and Patrick Duffy, gotta believe they're the ones that are gonna have the upper hand. Just having the experience that they do, being in Q's. I think it's really hard for a rookie to come in and take a starting spot on a Division I lacrosse team. I think it's, other than the face-off X, probably the biggest difference in the college game from the high school game. So it'll be interesting to see if any of those freshmen, either of those freshmen can, if Braden Ferguson, the 4-star freshman from the Bullis School, can push Jimmy McCool and Patrick Duffy, or any of those other guys that sort of step in and start making stops. But that's going to be a huge question mark. You got a defense that's coming back. Hopefully that defensive unit coming back with Michael Grace can make the goalie's job a little bit easier. You're not asking a ton out of the netminder. Just make the saves that you need to make. But it'll be interesting to see who steps between the pipes, because we all know the Q style is fast and up and down. And when you play fast, it puts a lot of pressure on the defense, and a lot of pressure on the goaltender to make the saves that he needs to make. So that's something that I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on this year. You got 5 draw guys on the roster. Who becomes the go-to guy? Mason Cohn came in, took the bull by the horns. 5 guys this year, all kind of unproven. Who steps up and wins the ball? You need the ball to win. Can't rely. Yeah, your backbone's definitely going to be your defense, but I mean, shoot, with the returners that the Cuse has, their backbone could be the offense. They could outscore people with the dudes that they have down there. But you need the rock, right? So who's the guy at the X that's going to help get there? Is it going to be by committee? You never know. So we'll definitely be. I've got a close eye on that, and then. ACC up and down, goals, right? Where can the Cuse offense take them this spring? 5th year for Coach Pat March. A lot of consistency down on that end. You got Spolina as a junior. You got Hiltz as a senior. Like, they got dudes. A lot of consistency. Ton of caps at attack. Where can they take them? Can they make another jump? They went from 12th in 2023 to 6th in 2024. Can they jump into that top 5 as far as goals for output in the country? Because that's certainly going to help. And then looking recruiting-wise, you got freshman Peyton Anderson, midfielder out of the Brunswick School. He was the only 5-star. I mean, take that for what it's worth. We're just reading what Inside Lacrosse has to say on that one. Peyton Anderson, could he find a spot in the midfield? I probably. You got to believe so. Give him a shot. Let him run around out there, show off what he's got. But there's certainly a depth chart that Coach Pat March and Coach Gate have at their disposal. So it'll be interesting to see where Peyton fits in. And not sure how much of an impact he will have, but awesome to see that the world is healing and coming back together, because there will be another Bucktooth on the Syracuse roster. Brett Bucktooth Jr., by the way, of Wilbraham and Munson Academy, left-handed attackman, son of Brett Bucktooth Sr., who's a 2006 Syracuse grad. Awesome to see. Hopefully he gets some burn. But damn, I feel old. It's one of those Twitter memes for sure. That's kind of it on the Cuse. All right, that's kind of it on the Cuse. Let's move ahead here. We got the Duke Blue Devils, Durham, North Carolina. 3-1 in the league in 2024 after being 5-1 in the league in 2023. Big time difference, right? Overall 13-6, but that league record certainly certainly is eye-opening for me. Even with that league record, Elite Eight loss to the Terps, so they got as deep as the Orange did. Ran into a hot Terps team, obviously, who made it to the national championship game, but the Duke got by Cuse in the ACC tourney. They actually lost to the Cuse 10-4 during the regular season, but avenged that loss and ended up falling to Notre Dame in the ACC title game. First round NCAA wins over Utah, 19-7, and then Elite Eight lost to the Terps, 14-11. Interesting looking at their schedule from last year. The Blue Devils never lost two in a row. Even though they were 1-3 in the league, 13-6 overall, they never lost two in a row. They had the chance to lose two in a row a couple of times here. I got them written down. So they lose 14-12 to UPenn on the first Friday of March, but then beat Princeton 17-8 on that Sunday. Two great Ivy League teams, right? Avoid that back-to-back loss on a short rest. They lose to Cuse on a March Wednesday in the Dome, 10-4. But then they come back and beat number 5 Denver Pioneers 11-7 in a neutral site game in Baltimore their next time out. So again, not a cakewalk. Number 5 team in the country, the Pios, and they beat them 11-7 coming off a 10-4 loss. I think that just speaks to their resilience for sure. And then in the regular season, they lose to Notre Dame at home in Durham 15-12. Following weekend, they beat the number 2 Hoos of Charlottesville 18-12 at home. So back-to-back home weekends, lose to Notre Dame 15-12, follow it up with a win over the number 2 team in the country, the UVA Wahoos 18-12. So again, they had chances to lose back-to-back, but they never did. So that's 3 examples. And the final example they had to lose back-to-back was lose to Notre Dame in the ACC title game, and then obviously beat Utah in the first round of the NCAA tourney. So clearly a resilient group Coach Danowski had down there, and obviously led to their Elite Eight appearance. Looking at the stats for the Blue Devils, they were the 4th best scoring offense in the country, 14.89 goals for. You had the difference here. So Cuse and Notre Dame 1 and 6 in the country respectively, 4th for the Blue Devils. But the Blue Devils had Dyson Williams, who was 5th in the country in goals per game at 3.21, and Brendan O'Neill, who was 12th in the country at 2.84. Neither Cuse or Notre Dame had any guys that high. Not even close. I think, what did we say? Chris Cavanaugh was the highest at 32. So they had the 13th. They were 13th in the country in assists per game at 7.84, 16th in EMO at 43.9. Mind-boggling that a team like Duke is 16th in the country in EMO with all that talent, 43.9%. I gotta believe that they think that was underachievement. Then they actually had the number 2 shot percentage in the country at 35.3%. So obviously helped them get to Elite Eight weekend and help them in their pursuit of being a top 5 scoring offense in the country, slotting in at number 4 and at number 2 shooting percentage, 35.3. Again, shout out Coach Childs. Defensively, 18th scoring defense in the country at 10.42 goals against. They had to play Notre Dame twice, but I'd like to think this was an underachievement for the Blue Devils. Goaltending clearly wasn't a strength after starting the St. Lawrence grad for the first 6 games and then inserting the rookie Patrick Jamieson out of the Episcopal School, Conestoga, Philadelphia area. So, 18 scoring defense. I think it's going to be a strength for them this year, and we'll get to that. 21st in man-down defense at 68.5%. Pretty good. Again, playing against the ACC is no short task. And then 33rd in face-off winning percentage, which I found interesting. As a team, they were 51.2%, which put them at 33rd. You had Jake Naso, who was 55.9% on 390 draws last year. And let's just give a hat tip to Naso here. People forget he was committed to BU to start his career, but then ended up down in Durham. His 390 draws last year gave him 1,688 total draws in his career. 4 years, 69 games. He won 1,001 faceoffs for a 59.3% career mark. Just absolutely insane. The beating his body took is incredible, and it held up. And it's great to see him putting up some good numbers in the NLL too already this year. And then lastly, they were 10th in the country in clearing percentage at 89.2. Turn our attention to the roster. You obviously lose Brennan O'Neill, you lose Dyson Williams, and you lose Josh Zawada, Michigan transfer, all at attack. So all three of your starting attackmen, goodbye. See you later. Smell you later. Those three dudes were 52% of their point production last year. We're going to give that one a sheesh. 52% of their point production between three dudes, all at attack, all out the door. You also lose Aiden Denenza, midfielder out of St. Anthony's, Muttontown, New York. Shout out Muttontown, New York. Incredible. He was fifth on the team in points with 34 on 21 goals and 13 assists. So certainly some production there that's going to have to be made up. Already mentioned it. You lose Jake Naso at the dot, 69 career games, 1,688 career face-offs, over 1,000 wins. Where do they go? Right, where do they go from there? Gotta believe that there's a dude ready to come in. We'll talk about who I think that guy is. You're also losing Kenny Brower, starting defenseman. This is an insane stat. Brower started in all 80 games that Duke played during his career. Absolutely mind-blowing. He amassed 147 ground balls and 73 caused turnovers over his career. And if my memory serves me right, he garnered the top cover every game for the last 2 years at least, if not longer. So Kenny Brower leaving a big hole there on the defensive side. You lose Tyler Carpenter, LSM, who also played in 80 games during his career. 282 ground balls, 83 caused turnovers. Just insane production defensively and just wreaking havoc on opposing offenses. And you also lose Will Frizzoli, Boston Mass guy, in the LSM spot. Another dude that's just all over the place, doing great things for the Blue Devils over the last couple of years. So losing some serious resources on both sides of the ball and in the middle of the field are the Blue Devils. What are they returning though, right? Because we're all looking forward. Top guy they return, in my opinion, McAdory. First team All-American midfielder last year. He needs 13 goals to reach 100 goals for his career. He needs 63 points to reach 200 points on his career. 63, not out of reach. His career high is 61 his sophomore season. Now, that was when he played attack for a little bit of it, but he's going to be your top guy returning on offense, and that's it. Short list. Kind of scary. Defensively, this is going to be the backbone for the Blue Devils, in my opinion. They bring back, although they're losing Brower, Carpenter, and Frizzoli, they're bringing back Henry Bard, Lower Merion product, Philly, 17 starts last year, 24 ground balls and 15 caused turnovers. They're bringing back Keith Boyer, Yorktown product. Shout out Uncle Ricky Beast. You're bringing back Jake Wilson, LSM, Shoreham-Whiting River product. He's going to captain the Blue Devils alongside McAdory and this last guy who's returning on the defensive side, impact dude Jack Gray, short stick D-Mitty. So those are your three captains, Wilson, Gray, and McAdory. So you're bringing back Bard, Boyer, Wilson, and Jack Gray. So a great core to build around defensively. Then you're bringing back the rookie Patrick Jamieson for his sophomore campaign, coming off a year where he had a 53% save percentage. Pretty good, really good for a rookie, especially in that league. Now this is where Duke is different, right? This is where Duke is different. Duke hit the transfer portal hard. They saw the holes they had to fill and they hit it hard. You got Eric Maliver, Terps attackman, Atlanta, Georgia product. Shout out Liam Banks. Maliver averaged 40 points a year in his 3 seasons for the Terps, and he's clearly got big game experience. You got Luke Graham. Graham? Yeah, I think it's Graham. Richmond, by way of the Shipley School in Philly. He was the leading goal scorer last year for the Spiders. He was 37 and 10 with an insane 46% shooting percentage. So another guy that's just filling it up at a really high rate. You got Graham Blake coming south from Harvard by way of Marin Catholic over there in Cali. He was 29 and 1 last year for the Crimson. So there's two off-ball guys in Graham and Blake. Graham and Graham. Graham Blake, Luke Graham. Graham. My pronunciation's wild. I can't wait to hear Quint Kesnich call out Luke's last name on day one. And then the NESCAC to ACC pipeline stays hot. You know, you had Mason Cohn last year for the Orange. The Blue Devils are bringing in a guy, Pierce Glavin from Williams, who had 139 career points for the Eafs on 87 and 52 over his career. And Brock Gonzalez from Amherst. He's actually in his second year in Durham. He's listed at 6'5", 275. Didn't have a role last year for the Blue Devils, but obviously they had a ton of depth and a full attack unit. But could he be? I mean, shoot, he's listed at 6'5", 275. There's got to be something we can do with that. So it'll be interesting to see how those two Cackers make an impact. And then lastly, the last big name that I saw coming through in the transfer portal, Paul Wethington, a Princeton short stick D-midi. Super bitten by the injury bug during his career, but I know Coach Madelon had high hopes for Wethington every year in Princeton, New Jersey. I mean, he's built for it at 6'2", 215. Question is, can he get healthy and stay healthy and make an impact alongside Jack Gray there at that short stick D-midi spot? Clearly can play at a high level, playing in the Ivy League, so it'll be interesting to see kind of how he fits in. So now we look at questions for the Blue Devils. This is weird saying this because it's the Duke Blue Devils, but can they score enough to complement their veteran defense? Period. Can they score enough? You got to score goals in the ACC. There's no way around it. Can they score enough with a full new attack unit? Speaking of that attack unit, who plays attack? Right? Opening day or last day of the season, who's at attack? I can't imagine it's going to be the same. I know the Blue Devils are notorious, and Coach Danowski is notorious for losing that February game, trying to figure out which pieces fit where. So it'll be interesting to see how that works in Durham early in the year. Who's playing attack? I mean, you've got Maliver from Notre Dame. Maliver coming to the ACC. Did he run from those gorillas of the Big Ten, or did he want to play in the best league in the country? We'll see. You've got Luke Graham from Richmond, and then you got Graham Blake from Harvard. That's my guess. Those three dudes. Maliver, ball dominant. Luke and Blake seem to be more off-ball guys. Certainly Graham Blake from Harvard is an off-ball guy with his stat line last year. But it'll be interesting to see. I think those are that's I gotta believe that'll be the opening day attack unit, but hey, we'll see. And then obviously you got those two NESCAC transfers that we talked about. You've also got the number 22 recruit in the country in Liam Kirschis from Shore and Wading River, and the number 49 recruit in the country in Austin Hicks out of St. Margaret's Episcopal in Cali. They slot in a rookie down there, and move one of those transfers in the midfield. Be interesting to see. Because I'm projecting Maliver, Graham, and Blake as their opening day starting attack, I'd love for somebody to fact check me. And is that the first time in college lacrosse that a team will have 3 transfers start at attack at any point of the season, let alone opening day? Let me know. Sound off in the comments if you know of another situation similar, but I can't think of one. Now, granted, the landscape of transferring has changed dramatically over the last couple of years, so I can't believe there's one, but maybe there is. Next question, staying with the offense. And I mean, this goes with the opening one of, can they score enough goals? Will there be ample midfield production? Lots of attack-driven offense the last couple years out of Durham, obviously. Ton of talent down there. Best player in the country, generational talent, and Brennan O'Neill. The midfield hasn't had to shoulder the load. More complimentary, right? Are there guys ready to step up and make an impact beyond McAdory? Because McAdory is an insane athlete. His burst, his first step, his top end speed, all of it, his lacrosse IQ, how he can get underneath dudes, how even though he's a shorter guy, he is built and he can take contact and he can roll off of it and get underneath it. He's about to be a dude, and what pieces are there going to be around him to make an impact? Can you got junior Max Sloat from the West Coast dude? Can he do more than 19-8? Can Ben Johnson, coming off a rookie year, elevate his play? Benny was 21-8 as a rookie. Can he step up? He's certainly going to garner a lot more attention from opposing defenses. But you put him on a line with McAdory, pick your poison, who you're going to pull there. And as I was looking through all this, it's interesting because personally, one of the things I think about when I think of Duke is depth. They can just roll dudes at you. Personally, I think that was a question mark last year. Does that change this year? Do they have guys that can step in, and can they roll 2 full lines at you, maybe even a third every once in a while? Because I think that's something that they're kind of known for. A place that has a ton of depth and has a ton of talent. Can they get back to that? We'll see. Turn our attention to the face-off dot. Is Cal Gerard the guy? Sophomore from Manhasset. He took some draws behind Naso last year. He was 43%, 50 wins out of 116 draws. Could be. But personally, I think it's going to be the rookie, Ben McCarthy, number 4 recruit in the country from the Haverford School. Shout out Coach Dawson out there in Philly. Ben McCarthy's listed at 6 foot 180, so definitely big enough to take an ACC beating, but is he mentally ready? I got to believe his hands are fast enough. You face-off guys can tell me, but that's stuff that usually translates, and you all face off against each other growing up all the way through. And I got to believe Ben McCarthy, big time recruit coming down to Durham. He's going to be the dude shouldering the load, but we'll certainly be interested to see if he's mentally ready for that type of challenge. The defense is going to be beyond solid. I could see it being a top 5 defense in the country. Coach Caputo is one of the best minds in the game. He's forgotten more lacrosse than I'll ever know. You could put me out there with Boyer and Bard, and we could get stops with me as a third defenseman. And I was a netminder, and I don't move all that great. But Coach Caputo and Coach Nowski don't actually have to put me out there. That's certainly a plus for them. They've got the number 2 recruit in the country coming to campus, in Nicholas Mendez from Culver Academy by way of Naperville, Illinois. Does he slot in there? Similar to a Henry Bard who played similar to a Tyler Carpenter who played every game, and Kenny Brower who played every game. Does the young man come right in and play right off the jump? Menendez, Culver Academy, gonna be ready physically. It'll be interesting to see where he fits with that defensive unit for Coach Caputo. And quite selfishly, I want to see junior Zach Jepson out there. The dude's listed at 6'8", 220. Bio says he lettered in football and wrestling in high school. Bend, Oregon product. He had a stop at Avon. He played football his freshman year for the Blue Devils. 6'8", 220, man, that is, I believe some coaches call it length. That's some length. So maybe keep an eye out for Jepper getting out there and being disruptive, at least on man down, man. Like, sheesh, passing lanes, you can shut those down anywhere near him. At LSM, you've got Jake Wilson returning, who you've got to imagine is going to shoulder most of the load for the Blue Devils at that LSM spot. But you also have interesting transfer, captain of the Junkyard Dogs, coming from Cuse down to sunny Durham, Tommy Drago, New Jersey product. Drago's got an unbelievable stick off the carpet and in lanes. Clearly a ton of work on the man-down defensive unit in Syracuse last year in the Dome. Can he help that defensive, or can he help that defensive unit a little bit off the wings? Can he help with the man-down unit? We shall see. And then obviously you got the return of Jamison with a year of experience will be big, but freshman year, the expectations are low. You go out there, you do your thing, confidence. With the expectations low, you don't have to do a whole lot. You just do your thing, and you play. You just play. Now, as a sophomore, expectations are going to grow. How does he handle it? Does he take a step? Does he stay right where he is? Does he start to overthink things? Does the pressure get to him a little bit? That'll be interesting to see, but I'll tell you what, that defensive unit is going to give him every opportunity to be successful. I can't speak more highly about him, but also want to give Coach Danowski and Coach Forty, Matt Danowski, the offensive coordinator, a shout out. Both inducted to the Duke Hall of Fame this summer. Coach Danowski in the Duke Hall of Fame. Coach Forty in the Duke Hall of Fame. Coaching for their jobs, because that's what they do. What does this year bring for the two new future Hall of Famers? It'd be really cool to see, and obviously a great story in sports and in the lacrosse community for sure. Coach Forty's got his hands full, though. That's an offensive unit that's got to find an identity and find it quick. I will say that Duke offense has always been a little bit like Novocaine. Coach Boone, shout out from Remember the Titans, right? 3 plays. Put it in like Novocaine, and it'll work. I just butchered that line. I'll come back and get it right. But do they show more creativity? Do they stick with what they've always done? Pairs, 1-4, little invert, big little. Keep it pretty simple. Let players make plays. Or with a whole new unit, do you do something a little different? I don't see anything different. I could see Coach Danowski putting his foot down, saying this is what works. We're going to stick with it. We're going to get better every single game throughout the year. We're going to take our February loss and we're going to move on. But certainly something to keep an eye on. I think that's it for the Blue Devils. Let's move on. You got the Wahoos. All right, Charlottesville, UVA. Coach Tiffany and crew. Looking back to last year, 12-6 overall. Lost in the Final Four to the Terps. Back-to-back seasons where they ended up losing in the Final Four. They were 1-3 in the league after a 4-2 record in 2023. So a similar flip to the Dukies. They lost badly to Notre Dame in the first round of the ACC tournament. They were doubled up, 18-9. But then followed that loss up with NCAA wins over St. Joe's and Hop in double OT before falling in the Final Four, 12-6 to the Terps in the semis. Kind of crazy, too, for a UVA team, but they lost 4 in a row heading into the NCAA tournament. All ACC opponents, hence their, three ACC opponents. So, tough to go in and then find 2 wins the NCAA tournament after losing 4 in a row. But they were 3-1 against the Big Ten in the regular season. One of those wins came over the Terps, but obviously Maryland got their revenge in the NCAA tournament in May, and they were 1-0 against the Ivy League beating Harvard. Looking at the stats, Virginia was 11th in the country in scoring offense at 13.78 goals for. You had Peyton Cormier, top dude in the land, in the country, goals per game at 3.61. Next highest on the team was rookie McCabe Millen at 56th in the country at 2.28 goals per game. They were 7th in the country in assists at 8.61, and they were number 2 on EMO at 59.4. That's an incredible number. I mean, number 1 EMO, Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Number 2 EMO, UVA. Those are just 60% plus on the extra man is just, it's a really nice luxury to have for an offensive coordinator, that's for darn sure, and for a defense coordinator for that matter. They were number 22 in shooting percentage in the country at 30.7%. With the departure of Sean Kerwin, this is kind of, it's not surprising, right? Number 22 in the country. Kerwin took with him the focus on that crease presence in some of his offensive and most of his offensive concepts. So not a knock on Coach Cassis, just a different philosophy. They were 37th in scoring defense in the country at 11.39 goals against, which was dead last in the ACC. That can't be. If Virginia wants to get back to another Final Four and beyond, winning another national championship, because they're one of the last, they've got one in the last 5 years, they can't be 37th in scoring defense. And I'm sure Coach Tiffany has got some tricks up his sleeve to get that back. I mean, the question is it due to personnel or a style of play? Coach Tiffany holding on to the pace of play of years past, and that just puts a lot of pressure on the defense. Some helmets out there would try to argue with me it's because of the 10-man ride, and I'll call you a helmet for that take. Like, the 10-man ride is a monster to deal with game in and game out, and there's no way you can convince me that it cost them an average of a goal a game. No shot. And okay, let's say that it did. Average of a goal a game, so let's take their scoring or their goals against average from 11.39 to 10.39. It only would have moved them to 17th in the country. It's not like it would have jumped them all the way up to top 10, top 15. That 10-man is just a monster. I think there's something else going on defensively that they're going to have to really focus on here in 2025. And then here's one for you. 71st in the country in man-down defense. They were getting stops 49% of the time. This had way more to do with the goals against average than anything else, in my opinion. And there's certainly obviously personnel things going on there, but 71st in man-down percentage. Now, granted, you're playing in the ACC, I get it, but that's something that's not a recipe for a ton of success. Merrimack and Hofstra were the only two that had statistically worse man-down units. And I can't wrap my head around it because their starting defense was listed at 6'5", 6'6", and 6'7". Even if one of those dudes got a penalty, you still got 6'5" and 6'6" out there covering up lanes, hedging and holding, rotating. Something's going to have to give there. And I don't know if that's a Coach Tiffany thing, if that's a Kip Turner thing, if that's a players thing, execution. But you can't. That can't continue in Charlottesville. They're 31st in face-off winning percentage, 51.8. Anthony Gabriel was 55.5% on 254 draws, and you had Thomas Colucci, who was 50% on 168 draws. So if my math is right, he won 84? How about that for a liberal arts degree? And then they were 7th in clearing percentage in the country at 89.8%, second in the ACC. Turning our attention to the roster, they're losing their top two scorers, similar to Duke. At least they're not losing all three like the Dukies, but you lose your top two scorers, Connor Schellenberger, Peyton Cormier. They combined for 162 points last year, which was an astounding 40% of their point production. They're also losing Jack Boyden, another NESCAC to ACC pipeline dude coming out of Tufts. Tufts transfer, who came down to Charlottesville for a one-year rental. He was 4th on the team in points at 37 on 20 goals and 17 assists. So for those of you keeping track at home, let's do the math. That's losing 3 of their top 4 scorers, but they're retaining 4 of their top 7. Okay, decent little split. Defensively, they're losing Cole Kastner, which everybody knows is taking his 5th year out at the Stanford Cardinal for the Hoops team. Actually got his first minutes last week, or depending on when you're listening to this, he got his first start against the UVA Hoos on the hardwood. The Tony Bennett-less Hoos actually on the hardwood. Cole Kastner, 36 GBs, 35 caused turnovers, which is insane. Caused turnovers at 35 was first on the team, and 36 GBs was second on the team outside of face-off personnel. They lose Chase Yeager, outstanding short stick D-midi of a Virginia kid who came home after 2 years at Amherst, NESCAC, to ACC. And Chase also spent 2 years at Harvard. I would love to know what this Chase Yeager guy's catapult numbers were last year. He seemed to never come off the field. You watch games, and defensively, Chase Yeager was always out there and always playing at a really high level. That's just insane to me, especially being a BFG, a big freaking goalie. So something I could never even fathom. But Yeager had 35 ground balls and 29 caused turnovers. His 29 caused turnovers as a short stick were second on the team behind Kastner. Insane. So that's what they're losing. What are they returning? All right. Offensively, you're bringing back McCabe Millen for his sophomore campaign. He was the third leading scorer on the team with 66 points on 41 goals and 25 assists. You're returning Griffin Schutz, senior, top midfielder, built like he would fit right into the linebackers room for the UVA football team. 6'3", 220 pounds, and he is a bruiser. Just running over dudes. He's fast enough to run by you, but I think he prefers to run over you. Just an absolute handful to deal with defensively, that's for darn sure. Another guy, people forget he was originally committed to Boston University. Coach Poley doing something right up there, or up here in Boston. And then you're returning Ryan Colsey, junior from Ridgefield, Connecticut. He was 19-4 last year. Obviously, I don't know if it's obvious or not, but he's got lacrosse pedigree. I still don't know how the Orange let this one slip away, but with his father being a Cuse alum, but hey, maybe he just wanted warmer weather, although the dome's always 74 and sunny. So, but yeah, Colsey down in Charlottesville, 19-4 last year. He should be able to step into a role for sure with his skills and IQ. Defensively, they're bringing back Ben Ware, one-word motor. 98 ground balls is a wild stat. Most GBs in the country for a non-face-off guy, with the next closest dude being 14 ground balls behind him. That's insane. The vacuum, man. Ben Ware. I might just be calling Benny the vacuum this year. But I will say this. Shout out Max Yates, LSM from Colgate. As we were looking up these stats, Max Yates, the Colgate LSM, had more GBs per game than Ben Ware. Ben Ware was at 5.4 ground balls per game. Max Yates was at 5.6, and I got to believe that Yatesy was in the middle of that 10-man ride that Coach Lattimore instituted up there in Hamilton, New York, coming up with a ton of GBs in the middle of the field and off the wing. So shout out Yates. Also returning, you got John Schroeder, absolute monster at 6'5", 225. Great feet for a big dude, homegrown Virginia dude. You got George Fulton, another space eater at 6'6", 205. I think Coach Tiffany's got a type. And then you're bringing back Noah Chismar. So, yeah, you lose Chase Yeager, but you bring back Noah Chismar, short stick D-midi, 6-2 on the year with 32 ground balls. Very reliable Baltimore product. Big shoes to fill with Yeager graduating, but Chismar is poised to step right in and not skip a beat there. And then in net, you got Matty Nunes. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like Nunes has been in Charlottesville longer than Cam McCormick has been playing college football. Cam McCormick played 9 seasons of college football, for those not aware. His last few at the University of Miami. Yeah, a lot of people go to college for 9 years. Yeah, they're called doctors. But yeah, it feels like Nunes has been in Charlottesville forever. 52.7% save percentage last year with 11.24 goals against average. Texas product. Nunes is certainly... I gotta believe he's ready for his last go around here. Look to the transfers for the Hoos. You got Greenspan transferring from Notre Dame to compete at the face-off. I gotta believe there's a good chance he's the bell cow. Obviously, the depth chart at the dot for the Irish was pretty deep, so Greenspan finds himself a new home in league. That'll be an interesting one. Circle that UVA Notre Dame first time that they match up. See what the face-off dot looks like. See who won that trade. You got Balsamo from Duke transferring to Virginia. Again, another head scratcher in league. I mean, I get it. I'm all for the players, but in-league transfer is really interesting. Why'd Balsamo leave? He would have been a great piece for Duke as far as having a ton of caps, a ton of experience, great skills, lacrosse IQ, awesome dude to watch. I loved watching Charlie Balsamo play in high school. All black stick, just he gets it. Yeah, really interesting one there for me. Had to have been something going on. I won't speculate, not my job. And then you got Johnny Hackett. All right, Bryant to UVA. The Bryant Bulldogs to the University of Virginia Hoos. Johnny Hackett wreaked havoc on the NEC last year. To talk super bad. We're gonna have to incorporate more movie references into these things. But Johnny Hackett might be the fastest kid alive. Putting cinema cops to the cinema cops are shaking in their boots when they see Johnny Hackett coming. His speed's going to be interesting. How does it match up in the ACC versus the schedule that he played when he was in Smithfield? But another good piece for the Hoos that they're adding. Questions for Virginia. All right. First and foremost, how do the Hoos bring their goals against average down? Is it goaltending? Is it a revamp of the man down principles? Coach Tiffany's going to shoulder this responsibility, but how does he get it done? Big question mark. Big question mark, in my opinion. How does McCabe Millen handle earning a number one cover guy on each team? You know, obviously Schellenberger took that responsibility last year. How does Millen step in? Super talented dude. Obviously, he's played at a high level his entire career and has always had the bright lights on him. Being the level of recruit that he was, there's going to be some big, scary dudes coming after him. He's going to have a target on his back, that's for damn sure. Where do the Hoos find depth in scoring? You know, does you lose 3 out of your top 4, but you return 4 of your top 7? Does a guy like Truett Sunderland make a jump? I know he has it in him. Even at his stature, he was an absolute bucket getter in high school for Galford Hall. Can Thomas Menke live up to his number 27 ranking, recruit ranking coming out of high school? One of those two guys? Is somebody else? Is that somebody else? One of the freshmen? I mean, the Hoos are bringing in 5 stars, according to Inside Lacrosse. You got Hudson Hausman. He headlines the crew at number 8 in the country. Midfielder out of the Brunswick School. He's listed as an attack midfielder on the UVA website. That's kind of interesting. They're leaving that door open, not letting people scout it. You got Ryan Dunkel, number 11, attackman out of St. John's in D.C. The aforementioned St. John's, who certainly turned into a powerhouse across the country, not only in the Mid-Atlantic. And you got Kyle Colsey, who's joining his brother in Charlottesville as the number 19 ranked recruit in the land by Inside Lacrosse at attack. But he too is labeled as an attack/midfielder on the roster. So maybe we see him playing more in the midfield to get his feet wet. But potentially the most interesting one for me is Sean Brown, 5-star, listed at 6'5", 210 pounds, from the Episcopal School of Dallas. He's got the family pedigree. Dad played football at Boston University. Ma, R.I.P. Mom competed on the U.S. national team. R.I.P. BU football. I believe his dad's still living. Sorry about that. Mom competed on the U.S. national team for rhythmic gymnastics. That's awesome. Aunt played tennis and softball for the Hoos back in the day, and his sister played lacrosse at Stanford for the Cardinal. But at 6'5", 210, who the hell do you put a pole on in the midfield with him and Schutz on a line together? Is Sean ready, right? I mean, first the question is Sean ready? But I mean, you roll those two guys out in the midfield and poof. My defensive mind is just doing backflips. I don't even want to think about that, quite honestly, but somebody's going to have to. So those are my questions down in Charlottesville. I think maybe, where does Nunes sit, right? The final one and the backstop, nothing near post. You got to talk about the netminder. Where does Nunes, how does Nunes write the final chapter of his book in Charlottesville? Can he take a step? He's got the talent. There's no doubt about it. Can he help? Can Nunes can he make an impact on that goals against average and that man down defensive number? Yet to be seen. Certainly talented enough. And then we round it out. Down in Chapel Hill, the North Carolina Tar Heels. All right, season recap. Looking back at it, 7-7 overall, 1-3 in the league, 2-5 at home. That ain't protecting home turf. One of those 2 wins was over Duke in their last game of the year. We got a little bit of a Michigan-Ohio State football situation here. If you win that one, you're good to go. Can't imagine 7-7 sits well with anybody, no matter who you beat. But certainly a good one, good feather in the cap for the Tar Heels. Looking at the stats, 26th in scoring offense in the country at 12.36 goals for. You had the rookie Owen Duffy, 24th in the country in goals per game at 2.67. Next highest was redshirt rookie Dom Petramala on the left side, who was 54th at 2.29 goals per game. They were 19th in the country in assists per game at 7.57. They were 20th in the country at extra man at 42.2%. Pretty good for the young group that they had. Pretty good. And then number 57 in shot percentage in the country. Those 2 dudes aforementioned, Duffy and Petramala, some would label them volume shooters. I wouldn't disagree. We'll certainly talk more about that, but 57 in shot percentage in the country just isn't going to cut it, right? You only get so many looks at the cage, and a lot of those are probably turning into fast breaks the other way. But certainly going to have to keep an eye on that shot percentage for the Tar Heels. Defensively, they were 19th in scoring defense, at 10.43 goals against, which was actually 3rd in the ACC. This number surprised me a bit. You go 7-7 and your defense is top 20. Like, something else must be going on. I got a ton of respect for Colin Craig, netminder last year. I had him as the 2nd best goalie in the league behind Entenmann. But even with a veteran defense, when you're at the bottom of the league, I would have thought this would have led to a lower goals against average. Colin obviously did his part, which is awesome to see. Again, I had him as the 2nd best goalie in the league behind Entenmann. I just got a ton of respect for the kid out of Ward Melville. He's awesome. Had a great career. So it's interesting. You look at that, you're top 20 in scoring defense, you're 3rd in the ACC, but you end up at the bottom of the league. Like, something's got to give there. They're 30th in man down in the country at 65.2%. I'd argue it's really good for being in the ACC. And then here's one. Another surprising stat for me. They were 1st in the country in face-off win percentage. 1st, 61.8%. 2 dudes over 61%. They had the grad student Andrew Tyre, who was 74 out of 120, and they had freshman Brady Wambach, who was 146 on 239. So they're getting the ball, and maybe that's where the shooting percentage thing comes from, right? Letting rubber fly because they knew they were going to get it back. But certainly you got to believe if you're number 1 in the country in face-off winning percentage, you're going better than 7-7 and 1-3 in the league. But the hell do I know? And then lastly, 14th in clearing percentage, 88.6, 4th in the ACC. Turning our attention to the roster, you're definitely losing some pieces, but not many. All right, you're losing Logan McGovern, Bryant transfer. He was second on the team in points last year with 54 on 25 and 29. Logan is one of my favorite players to watch over the last 5 years. I remember watching him in high school as well, out of Darien, Connecticut. Just IQ, undersized, but tough, knows how to play the game, gets to good spots, puts his teammates in positions to be successful. Even though I believe he only had 2 years down in Chapel Hill, I think his presence is certainly going to be missed. You lose Lance Tillman out of Valor Christian in Colorado. He was sixth on the team with 12 points, but he just had a poise about him, and he had a ton of experience with 48 career starts. And then you lose two role guys in Trevor Dubner out of the Hun School and Matt Reedy out of Seton Hall Prep, who had 10 and 9 points respectively. So not losing a ton of production. McGovern obviously being the top guy there at 54 points. Defensively, you're losing Andrew Geppert, Phillips Exeter, New Hampshire native. He had a 6-year career. He had 4 years at Brown and 2 at North Carolina. Howe, Ivy League, didn't play in 2020 or 2021, so he's able to get those 2 years back, which is great. Again, I'm all about giving the players what they deserve. He started all 28 games possible since arriving in Chapel Hill, so that'll be a big loss. You lose Maxwell Cooney, started the last 3 games of the year defensively. You lose Alex Bresci, short stick D-midi, 78 total games played in his career. Down year for his stats, though, last year with only 4 ground balls. And then you lose Danny Striano, short stick D-midi out of Cold Spring Harbor, who was a Bucknell transfer. He was 3-2 on the year, 31 ground balls with 5 caused turnovers. And then I already mentioned this, but you lose Colin Krieg, 50.5% career save percentage, 58 career starts. This is probably a hot take, but he's a top 3 goalie I've ever seen play in high school, out of Ward Melville and out of the Legacy Lacrosse program. Shout out Tommy Zumo. He was 10.47 goals against average last year. Really solid career, consistent. You just knew what you were going to get. And he led a top 20 defense in the country. Like, he did everything he could to put his team in position to be successful. So those are going to be some big shoes to fill. So if you're only losing a couple of dudes, that means you're returning a bunch, right? They're returning 4 of their top 6 scorers. That's going to be led by Owen Duffy, sophomore campaign loading. All right, number 1 recruit in the 2023 class out of St. Anthony's. He's a walk-in highlight reel. He's got the green light. He 54 points last year on 32 and 22, 128 shots for 25% shooting percentage. Keep that in mind. Dominic Petramala, you return him on the left side, attackman, redshirt sophomore this year, out of Boys Latin, number 3 recruit in the 2022 class. All right, he was 32 and 11 on 122 shots last year for a 26% shooting percentage. I mean, between the two of them, 200, let me do the math, 200, oh boy, and 50 shots. Sheesh. All right, volume. All right. You also returned James Matan, 12 and 5 last year for 17 points on 53 shots, 22% shooting percentage. Let's be fair to the kid. 22.6 shooting percentage. That's a double. Yeesh. That 22% is a tough number. You got a big body, 6'3", 205. Out of Gonzaga, he garners a ton of attention from defenses. I'll be interested to see how he can take the next step. You got Ryan Levy, who's coming back, 8 and 5 on 23 shots, 35% shooting percentage. Local Chapel Hill product with a stop at Taft on his way to UNC. Cerebral player, great skills. Dad played at UNC as well. Mother is on the coaching staff for the women's side of things. But between those 4 guys, Levy, Matan, Petramala, and Duffy, they produced 45.5% of the team's points last season, all returning. Coach Thompson's got to be fired up about that offensively. You also got Dewey Egan, 6'4", 225-pound bruising dodger, another Torrey Pines product. Shout out Coach Ziss. Even at that size and athleticism, he was 5-0 last year on 30 shots for an abysmal 16.7% shooting percentage. Those goals regulation size are what? Maybe he could turn it around a little bit. And then you got Antonio DeMarco, Philly guy from Penn Charter, super high IQ with great skills, but he was only 5-3 on 22 shots in 8 games last year. I think he got jumped a little bit on the depth chart after he wasn't putting up the numbers expected. And then defensively, Coach Petramala, defensive coordinator down there. You got Paul Barton coming back off of an injury that ended his season early. He played in the first 11 games for the Tar Heels. Long and lanky dude at 6'4", 210, good stick, great feet. Palo Alto native. Athletic pedigree with his father playing football at North Carolina and for the 49ers. He had 14 caused turnovers prior to the injury. He's coming back. You got Peter Thoman, started all 14 games last year for the Tar Heels during his rookie campaign. Merrick, New York native, Calhoun High School, 28 ground balls, 21 caused turnovers. Caused turnover number led the team as a freshman. That's awesome. You're returning Ty English, senior short stick D-Midi from Culver, 3-3, 29 ground balls, 13 caused turnovers for good enough for third on the team. You're returning Cooper Frankenheimer, senior short stick D-Midi out of Malvern, Philly area, 22 ground balls on 4 caused turnovers. Quite honestly, one of the best athletes I ever saw play on the club circuit. Makes sense. As I was reading up, both his parents were athletes at the Randolph-Macon in the ever-competitive ODAC, Old Dominion Athletic Conference. So look for Frankenheimer to take another step in his career here at the short stick D-Midi spot. And then you got Tyler Schwartz, Shore and Wading River product, senior defenseman, 35 career games in 3 years. So just a consistent, steady Eddie dude. And then you return Brady Wambach at the faceoff X. I already talked about his year last year. 146 wins on 239 draws for a 61% win percentage. Good enough for 5th in the country. He had 85 ground balls. That's a huge piece coming back for the Tar Heels. Netminder. Obviously, Krieg is graduating, so you don't have anybody coming back. But the transfer portal. All right, you got Gia Ficcaro. Bringing his talents south to Chapel Hill from Tigerland, a.k.a. Princeton, New Jersey. Coach Madelon seeing his starter come down from Princeton to UNC. 2 years as a starter for Princeton. He had 10.5 goals against average with a 56.5% save percentage. He backstopped the Tigers to an 11-5 2024 campaign. And what I think's neat about Giaficaro is he's out of the Pittsburgh area. Pittsburgh doing big things. Shout out Pete Poulion. Other transfers that the Tar Heels have coming down to Chapel Hill. You got Nick Dupuis, an attackman from Stony Brook, who also had a stop at UMBC. For Stony Brook, for the Seawolves, he had 50 assists last year, coupled with 16 goals. Northern Virginia dude out of St. Stephen, St. Agnes. He was 4th in the country in total assists and 2nd in the country in assists per game. So clearly a dude that sees the field really well, gets guys open, or throws guys open. So that'll be a nice piece for the two young bucks at attack to add if it's a good fit. You got Spencer Wertheim, transfer from Cornell, getting a chance at a 6th season as well, coming out of the Ivy League. He was 15-13 last year in Ithaca, New York. Another CNY dude hailing from Baldwinsville. Him being a Central New York dude, that alone brings some value to the Tar Heels. And then you got Andrew O'Barry, Harvard transfer, short stick D-Midi, Gonzaga product out of McLean, Virginia. He was a first-team All-Ivy League guy last year and a captain last year. 40 ground balls, 6 caused turnovers. Where does O'Barry fit in with the likes of Frankenheimer and Ty English? You know, having a 3-headed monster in the short stick D-Midi spot is beyond valuable. Arguably the toughest position on the field, and I will stand by that. As far as the rookies, all right, Tar Heels are bringing in 2 5-stars tagged by Inside Lacrosse. They're both midfielders. You got the number 10 ranked Mason Swiziak out of Culver by way of Naperville, Illinois. What the hell's in the water in Naperville? You love to see those non-traditional areas coming alive. You got the number 13th ranked Caden Harshberger out of Lake Mary, Florida. And then you've actually got 4-star defenseman Ben Fox out of Chaminade, the 6'2", 190-pounder. I mean, you look up defender in the dictionary, and you might be looking at a picture of Ben Fox, stereotypical build for sure. When I was looking at this, I was like, how did Coach Wellner, Notre Dame, recruiting coordinator, defensive coordinator, how did he lose this one? He's got the secret Chaminade handshake, but turns out Ben's father was a 2-time All-American for the Tar Heels, so pretty tough to overcome that. But see if Ben has an impact on that defensive unit as well. But some of the questions, and quite honestly, I might have the most questions for the Tar Heels. What kind of step did Duffy and Petramala make? Can they find some success with the volume shooter mentality? Does Coach Thompson try to tweak their game a little bit? Does he let them to continue to fly because they know they're going to be good at the X? That'll be interesting to see. How does Dupuis out of Stony Brook fit in with those two dudes? I got to believe that he slots in nicely down there. Now, granted, Petramala, off-ball guy / a lefty sweeper. He can certainly play off the ball as a shooter really well. Duffy's ball dominant. With all Dupuis' assists, he's ball dominant. So how does that gel? How does that mesh? Or is there somebody else that I'm missing that might come in and Dupuis plays out of the midfield? Or does Petramala move up to the midfield and sort of play the Brendan Grimes, Hopkins, lefty, sweep type of dude? We'll see. I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse here. Can James Matan be more efficient? The dude's a stud. Can he be more efficient? And then with that, can they find some more scoring depth? They're gonna have to. They got to score more goals, and they can with their ability at the dot. But in my mind, it really all culminates with how John Thompson can put these guys in positions to be successful in his second year holding the whiteboard. Now you've got a full year under your belt and a full second year, some continuity in concepts. That should lead to some success. But if I'm gonna be real here, like, I see it as a really interesting situation because John Thompson likes structure. His Amherst teams that were great, they love structure. He loves structure. He put them in structure. The Amherst guys love structure. The smart dudes out of the CAC, right? Structure is a good thing for those guys. None of the Tar Heels offensive talents have ever really needed structure. And I'm not really convinced that they like structure. So how do those two sort of mentalities mesh? Same goes for Coach Petro, actually. One of the best to ever do it between the lines and on the sideline. Can he take the defense to another level, even though they were top 20 last year, right? Or does he need to take them to another level? Can he keep them right where they're at? That'll be interesting to follow. I'm excited personally to watch Frankenheimer and English go to work alongside O'Barry as well. Can they continue to be a lead against some of the best midfielders in the country? That rope unit, as far as short sticks goes, is scary. 3 really, really high-level dudes. That's certainly going to be nice for Coach Petramala, a defensive unit to have. Can Brady Wambach have another killer year at the dot? Who plays his wings? You got those 3 short sticks. Who's the LSM that comes up there and helps him out, even though Wambach had, I think it was 85 ground balls. This one's interesting, right? Do they recommit to the 10-man with Giaficaro? Is he capable of running the 10-man? I know they did it when Chris Gray was in town. I think they did it a little bit last year. Do they go a little bit more with it, seeing other teams have success? That'll be interesting to keep an eye on. And this is kind of a little bit of a knife to the gut, but it's got to be said. What's their culture like? Coming off a 7-7 year, what's their culture like? When I think UNC, I think smooth, cool, blonde comb-overs from Baltimore, you're right. I don't always think of toughness. But this team's loaded with talent. Can they put it together? Can they put it together? Did that team from last year take this 7-7 mark and say, that's not good enough? We're better than that, and we're going to go out and we're going to win games. And we're going to play at a high level. And did they put the work in to make that a reality in the offseason? Yeah, that's kind of where my head's at there, you know. And I think in the same vein, and I hate to say this, but is Bresci coaching for his job? I mean, let's be honest. Of course he is, because he's a coach and that's his job. And this may be an unfair question given Coach Bresci's body of work, but UNC's a program with a deep history of success. Coach's been at the helm since 2009. He's 160 and 85 for a 65% winning percentage, which is incredible. Even more incredible, he added a fifth NCAA championship plaque to the trophy case in 2016. You know, alongside Willie Scroggs, who won 3, and Dave Klarman, who won 1. But it's a little bit of what have you done for me lately? He only has 3 ACC wins. I should say, the Tar Heels only have 3 ACC wins under his tutelage over the last 3 years, and only 2 trips to the NCAA tournament in the last 8 years since winning it all in 2016. That's insane, right? What does the team come out this year, and what is Coach Bresci able to put together? And even with both of those, like those 2 negative ideas, right? And I got a ton of respect for Coach Bresci. Looking at it, I'm labeling the Tar Heels as frisky. They got talent top to bottom. They've got dudes all over the field. They're great at the X. Clearly, they can put it together on the defensive end. You've got a great netminder transferring in. They're frisky. They're not to be overlooked. All right, and that's where I'm putting the Tar Heels for the year. And then to close out this rant, probably too long, but hey, we wanted to look at it. I dove in. Like I said, lacrosse makes me feel some type of way. Got to give predictions. Right? And this is where the takes come into play. We'll go 5-1, who I think is going to be last place in the ACC, all the way up who I think is going to be first place in the ACC. 5th place. Whew. I mean, great league. This team's coming off in a Final Four trip last year. The University of Virginia Wahoos. I'm putting them in 5th place. The goals against average from last year needs to be addressed. And life without Connor Schellenberger is going to get real fast. In 4th, I'm putting the North Carolina Tar Heels. Just talked about them. They're officially frisky in Chapel Hill. Number 3rd, Duke Blue Devils. Can they score enough, and who takes draws? But I'll tell you what, they're 3rd because that defensive unit is going to be an absolute stalwart to deal with. 2nd place. Drum roll. I'm putting the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They're going to reload. There's no doubt about it. But you lose the ACC Male Athlete of the Year in Pat Cavanaugh. All right, you lose Entenmann between the pipes. They're going to be good. There's no doubt about it. They're going to reload. All right, Jordan Faison, uncoverable. All right, but I'm putting them at number 2 in the ACC because I'm putting the Syracuse Orange at number 1. The glow up is real. They've made incredible strides over the last 2 years in sort of all those stats that matter. They're returning all meaningful offense, all meaningful defense. Yes, they got the question at the faceoff dot. Yes, they got the question in the net. But if you can take care of the offense and the defense and play some good special teams, time is now for the Syracuse Orange. So I'm putting them at 1. So to recap, you got the Cuse at 1, you got Notre Dame at 2, you got Duke at 3, North Carolina at 4, officially frisky, and you got the Wahoos at 5. But to be honest with you, because I think they're the best league in the country, being number 5, you just got to get invited to the big dance. I know it's hard to get all 5 ACC teams in. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully the Wahoos can get another trip, but that's going to leave somebody out. So we'll see how it all pans out. But appreciate all you listening. Again, I'm nothing near post. You can find me on Twitter at Niner_M. Excited to go through this. I think next we'll look at another conference, maybe do a little bit of schedule watching, see what games we want to circle for those first couple weeks of the year. But until next time, remember, nothing near post. And again, this episode went out to the two Hobart legends. You got Ricky Gilbert, and you got Coach Urick. R.I.P. Thanks for all that you did for the game, you two. You're the best. You'll never be forgotten. Till next time, nothing near post, boys.